Kristen, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you,
So,
Barry.
so I've known Kristen for decades. We met, well, let's say decades ago. I was in a group therapy session with Carolyn Gregory, wife of Hugo Gregory, who was one of the great inspirations for you, I think, and you were there. You were there, and then we hadn't seen each other for a long time, probably decades then. And then I met one of your students, and he talked very highly of this speech therapist, and it turned out to be you, which was very fun. So, and it's great to interview now, Kristen, for our Stein on Stuttering. And let me just give a quick bio. Kristin Chmela is a licensed certified speech language pathologist and board certified specialist in fluency and fluency disorders. She lectures and consults locally, nationally, and internationally, is lead author for 2 books, published as practical fluency therapy materials, and served as an adjunct at Northwestern University. But that doesn't even tell all of it. Kristen is really at the top of the field, and it's just great to have you here, Kristen.
Great to be here.
So there's so many different approaches. What's your strategy or strategies in working with people who stutter?
I think the best way that I could explain this is that every person is an individual. And my training with Dr. Hugo Gregory at Northwestern University, Larry, I think I was a graduate student maybe when I was in that group that you were in.
So.
But one of the most powerful things that Hugo taught me was that we have to consider the unique experiences and perceptions and emotions of the individual client. That's what he called differential evaluation, differential treatment. So I guess the best way I could say this is that I'm a differential thinker, which means that I'm interested in your stuttering, your presenting problem, what it looks like, what it feels like, but I'm also interested in your emotions and your attitudes about it. And then I'm interested in all the potential contributing factors. So when we look at that, we're really looking at the whole person, and we're interested in your entire well-being as a communicator, because all in our lives, internally as well as externally, impacts our ability to communicate with other people. Mm-hmm.
So you, at the time we met, I think you stuttered. Mm-hmm. And how does your experience as a person who stutters influence how you work with people and your therapeutic methods?
You know, I think that the influence has changed over time. I think for me, the most important bottom line of how I would answer that question is that it has provided me with an unrelentless passion to help people who stutter and to help children who stutter. I think in part because of all the suffering that I endured growing up, stuttering and also experiencing other difficulties. And I think that that kind of passion for me created an opportunity to really have a purpose. It never has been a job for me. At the end of the day, it's what's best for the person who stutters. And I think that's had a big influence on me. I think in different times, as I worked on my own well-being as a communicator, I probably had more emphasis on certain things. The one thing that I was taught by the Gregorys, and that Dr. Gregory said to me over and over again, and I don't know if I hear this so much anymore in our field, is that you cannot project your own experience as a person who stutters onto your client. And I think that I had to keep working on my own self in order to be able to help the person who stutters in a more objective way and in the most supportive and professional way. So, in the end, it's my purpose. It's always been my purpose. I've always had that mission of helping people who stutter. I've never wavered from it. And that's taken many different forms across the length of my career. But I think that I'm a very lucky person that I was able to not only have those experiences and experience suffering. We all suffer as humans for lots of different reasons,
Right.
but to experience it and then to be able to evolve from it, that is what I think has been the biggest influence now for me as someone in this profession.
You've seen both sides.
I think so. And to experience, when I say to evolve, I really remember moments when, in particular, one moment, when a colleague said to me at a presentation we were doing together for the Stuttering Foundation, "Kristen, you're just talking." And I was finally just talking freely. And to experience, and I know you know this, Larry, because we've talked about it, to experience what that does, that kind of joy in the brain. Of course, we want to promote and we want to hold on to it and let it sink in more and more and more. But that joy of just being able to share what you want is like nothing I don't think I've ever experienced.
I still find myself, having gone through very severe stuttering, I still can't believe that I'm able to say what I want, when I want, to whom I want. I still can't believe it still. Give the listeners some feeling for how you felt before, and then how relaxed you are now, and you were saying you're free to speak. Give them a sense of what it is to break free and feel free.
Yeah. Well, I think that partly one of the differences is no longer living in the mind of a person who stutters. And what I mean by that, and this is not, I'm not saying it's psychological. Our brain responds in different ways to our environment. That is the way it is wired to respond. So over time, we get caught in this net of a bad experience, triggered emotion, negative perceptions about it, and the fear involved. One of the things I can say, and I'm going to describe what it looked like, because I really work hard on observing rather than evaluating. And to me, a term like covert is an evaluation rather than what did it look like. So what did it look like? It looked like scanning every time I raised my hand in school, only talking when I thought I could get words out. If I had to say my name in front of a class, I would literally get up and leave. I would just flight. I would just leave. It looked like choosing the college I went to because I could say it with the least amount of stuttering.
Wow.
Yeah.
You beat me on that one.
When I graduated from high school, all I wanted was a necklace with my name on it because I had so much trouble saying my name. I had a wonderful college roommate named Haley, and she was so outgoing and vibrant and alive, and she would talk for me. She was one of the bridges to get to the next step. And of course, I could share lots of experiences, but I really only talked when I thought I could. I was in it. I was in the mix. I had boyfriends. I had friends. I was in it. But over time, not communicating, I think I didn't develop a lot of those skills. I'm still not that comfortable in social situations. the impact was so deep and so big. It was so deep, which is probably why the joy now is so high.
Yeah.
And this is not about not stuttering. It's not about fluency versus stuttering. So I'm sure I can stutter at a given moment, anytime. And I do sometimes. I do.
So, given that experience, what is the goal for your clients? Is it fluency or is it something else? You've been talking a lot about
Or,
communication.
yeah, well, if we're talking, let me make one comment that we work with people who stutter based on where they are in their cognitive development. This is critical. So when we work with young children who stutter, that we feel are at high risk to persist, these are the early stuttering treatment children. The
Yeah.
goal is to establish normal fluency and to keep on talking and to love talking and to feel good about themselves as communicators. As time moves on, if an individual continues to stutter, the goal is about the client. And we say to the client, what would your life look like if this got better for you? What would it look like? So, what does the client want? Does the client want to talk more in certain situations? Does the client want to improve the ease of overall communication? Does the client want to self-adjust stuttering in a way to assist that ease? Does the client want to get a new job? Does the client want to be able to communicate telling a joke at recess with peers? So the goal is to keep evolving as a communicator. How that plays out for the person depends on the person and the family and the people in the child or the client's environment.
So for a lot of people who stutter, they haven't had maybe the greatest experience with speech therapy, and they'd like to improve their speech, but they're questioning, gee, should I go into speech therapy? Should I do something else? What? I mean, it's a hard thing to manage. What do you say to that? What advice can you give?
Well, I think that we know we have a lot more work to do in training therapists to be able to help people with this disorder. Is it possible? Yes. I think that there are many things that an individual can do to support themselves as communicators. I know for myself, having therapy with the Gregorys, and then the support of my colleagues who knew so much about stuttering that I presented with and that I collaborated with, I learned so much from them about my own communication skills. And I worked through a lot of my stuttering through my relationships with them. I think there's support. There are different groups that people get involved with. At the end of the day, let me mention one more thing. There's therapy, there's counseling. Many people get into things like yoga and mindfulness, or they take on a physical activity that helps them gain more body awareness. At the end of the day, though, it's what really matters to you. What do you believe and what do you want, and how can you find individuals, whether they're professionals, whether they're involved in support groups, such as the National Stuttering Association, their friends, there are many different groups. Can you find individuals that you feel share your same philosophy, your underlying principles of who you are and how you operate and who you want to become?
So before we go to the next question that I had planned, which I'm really excited to ask you about, first, let me just, so you've gone through stuttering. You've actually emerged from it. And I'm just curious, is there one thing you can point to? Is it an evolution for you? What brought you through that?
I've been asked this before, and I was thinking about this, thinking about what you wanted to talk about. So my visualization of this is, imagine, Larry, that all of our lives are represented by houses, right? And we each have multiple rooms in the house. My response to that would be, which room would you like me to talk about? Because there have been so many things over time that I have done that have helped me get where I am presently, but I'm not finished because I have chosen to believe that we all, and that I can continue to evolve. I have chosen to believe that all happens exactly as it is supposed to. And when I made that choice and started really paying attention, it's amazing the connection, a connecting of the dots and the awareness we can develop. If I was to say, in summary, right, what is my style in this house? In summary, I'm highly persistent. I have never given up. I will never stop. I will never, it's not that it will never be enough. It's that I've chosen to be present in my own personal evolution.
And isn't that part of the joy of this? That, we always look at stuttering as, oh no, this curse, but
Mm-hmm.
you've made it something that you're evolving through and becoming the better for it.
I began with speech therapy from an approach of differential thinkers. Dr. Gregory and Mrs. Carolyn Gregory, who was, we were lifetime friends, and I were the Gregorys, and I had therapy with individuals who did not tell me this is what I had to do, who did not tell me that I had to accept stuttering. They did not tell me I should not stutter or I should stutter. They asked me what mattered to me, and they helped me with both sides of the coin. We worked on speech modification. And at that time, I wanted to speak well. I wanted to speak well.
Yeah.
I hadn't spoken in so long, for so many years. I wanted to be able to communicate. And we worked on that. They wanted me to do voluntary stuttering. I thought that was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard of. And now as I look back, I was 19, 20 years old. And of course that had great relevance. I had to come to that on my own. So we worked on both sides of the coin. It wasn't until my early 30s that I had a relapse. And I realized I was so focused on modifying my speech. I'll tell you, it paid off. I was so determined to model an easier way of talking for my clients that I embodied an easier approach to communication. Not because I thought about it, not because I talked about it, because I did it every day. This goes to my yoga mindfulness training. Embodying something is so different than talking about it and staying up here with it. So I realized I was so off balance. And then I said, I've got to start stuttering. My friends were stunned. They'd never seen that. I was ready to say, I'm ashamed of this. I'm ashamed of this problem, and I need to face it head on. And it was done in my way at the time when I was comfortable. So while we talk about, accepting, this is big stuff. This is complicated. And acceptance allows us to respond rather than react, right? It gives us clarity to see what we want next. And I think that all individuals who stutter come to this in their own time with very careful guidance and understanding. I did a lot of counseling. it wasn't about stuttering. It was about recovering from shame.
Mm.
I put myself in experiences and then felt those spirals in the emotion, but I just kept getting up and trying to evolve the next day.
You know, that's what I tell people who I meet. I say there are no dead ends. There's always a way forward. You just keep moving forward. So one of the great things that you're doing on top of everything else is you began this camp shout out. And I've actually met a young person who was at Camp Shout Out, and he said it changed his life. He met so many wonderful people. It was such an impact on him. Why don't you tell us about the camp, why you started it, and the impact it's had and what you've learned from that?
So Camp Shout Out actually started as a program in the Chicago area called Camp Speak Up. And I wanted to mention this because I give all the credit for the beginning of this to a former client's mother and his stepfather who had a son who stuttered, who said, wow, wouldn't it be great to have a camp for children who stutter? And so she called me and said, would you be willing to do this? And this was significant for me and has been significant in my evolution because I never went to camp as a child. I was way too afraid. I was afraid to stutter. I was afraid to go. I had so many sensory sensitivities. There was no way I was going to go to camp. I knew nothing about camp, nothing, except maybe a Girl Scout overnight with other parents. So she asked me to do this and I agreed. And I said, I will do this on one condition. I will do the camp, but I also want to make it a training opportunity for graduate students and for therapists to learn more about stuttering and helping children who stutter, because this is something that's been part of the focus of my whole career. And so we began the program, and during that time, I began collaborating with another mother of a client I used to work with who said, I really want a camp in Michigan. And she was a colleague. She came to Camp Speak Up, and we decided we could have a good collaboration together. And so I made the choice for various reasons to then do this program in the Michigan area. It is an international program. What Julie Rayner, my co-director, brought to the table was not only understanding stuttering from a parent's point of view, living it, also realizing it was so hard to find help in her area. And she was also a camp professional. She went to camp, she worked at camps, she knew a lot about summer camp. And we created our own camp because we wanted to make sure that the energy was right for these children to experience camp activity in a real setting while also being challenged as communicators. And it has taken almost 10 years now, maybe 13, 14, if I add the other camp, to really, I think we really have solidified how we do what we do. And the purpose of it, of course, is for children to be exposed to the mindset that I can evolve as a communicator, I can do difficult things, I can experience power as a communicator. We talk very little about stuttering. It's not that we don't want to talk about it. We do sometimes, but we talk more about what matters to you, what would you like to experience during this week, and how can we support you in doing that? So the campers actually run the camp when it comes to communicative opportunities. They make the announcements, they do the speeches, they run the campfire, they are experiencing communicative positivity all week long.
And that is so great for adults to hear as well, that these young kids, that it's about communication, it's about doing more and more and evolving, as you said, not only in your life, but in this camp with all the kids.
Mhm.
I think there's so much for adults to learn from that model that, I know for me, maybe for you too, you know, like you said, you had a friend who would talk for you in college, and
Mhm.
I did everything wrong. I avoided everything I could. Boy, wouldn't it have been great to have met you when I was a little kid and had that experience of beginning to move out from my hiding and out into the world. And as an adult, that's a great model too, don't you think?
I do, and I want to make one comment when you said I did everything wrong. And I want to make one comment. I think you did everything right. And what I mean by that is your brain, your emotional brain was responding to a bad situation exactly as it is wired to respond.
Mm.
So one of the things that I believe has evolved in the manner in which we work with individuals here at Chmela Fluency Center or at Camp Shoutout is this combining of understanding not only what we know from speech pathology from our field, but also things that we are understanding from psychology and things that we are understanding from neuroscience. So it's perfectly normal, given a difficult situation that doesn't feel pleasant, for the back of our brain where that emotion is housed to protect us. However, what we know and we're learning more and more about, and certainly Trish Zabrowski and others in our field that have talked about resilience and temperament, is that we can evolve from that and we can learn to make different choices that ultimately can alter how our brain is responding.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And yes, it's very sad that we had these experiences that were so difficult. And at the same time, that can be taken in a forward way and real change can happen. Mm-hmm.
Our greatest challenge can be our greatest triumph.
I believe that. And there's
Chris,
always another way, which I think is what we're excited about for Camp Shoutout. When we realized we had to postpone the in-person camp, hopefully until next summer, it was only about 3 days. It took me about 3 days to say, well, we're going to have to create a different experience. So we will be having a virtual experience this summer. Are we trying to replicate what happens at Camp Shoutout? Absolutely not. It's impossible. Are we going to create an experience for these campers where they can be communicating and feel successful and feel a connection with other kids? You betcha.
yeah. And it's that spirit, that can-do spirit, that I think will help you evolve into the speaker you are and the therapist you are. And it's such a great model for kids and adults that we can always keep evolving, keep moving forward. And so, Kristen, this was just great. I really appreciate getting together with you, and I hope everyone just really learns from all this. And just a quick commercial for you, Kristin Chmela, Chmela Fluency Center, Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Do I have that right?
Mm-hmm.
And just a pleasure to be with you. Let's talk
Larry, it
soon.
was great to be with you, and I've been so amazed at watching you since we reconnected and your passion for helping individuals who stutter in the way that you can, and your amazing, unselfish giving of your time and your talents. You are a success story from top to bottom. So namaste, my friend. I greatly appreciate being with you today. Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
Take
Keep
care.
on
Bye-bye.
talking. Bye-bye.